After abruptly cancelling talks with the Taliban at Camp David over the weekend, the US President Donald Trump says negotiations with the insurgent group are dead. There were hopes the talks would lead to the eventual withdrawal of US troops from the country after 18 years.
They're dead. They're dead. As far as I'm concerned, they're dead. They thought that they had to kill people in order to put themselves in a little better negotiating position. When they did that, they killed 12 people. One happened to be a great American soldier, a wonderful young man from Puerto Rico, families from Puerto Rico. And you can't do that. You can't do that with me. So they're dead as far as I'm concerned. And we've hit the Taliban harder in the last 4 days than they've been hit in over 10 years. So that's the way it is.
Donald Trump speaking there. Now, for more on this story, we can bring in Wasim Nasser, our expert on jihadi movements. Good afternoon.
Hey.
There you see, Donald Trump says that these talks with the Taliban are dead. Now, is the death of this American soldier at the hands of the Taliban being used as a way to stop negotiating with the group?
Well, I guess that's the trick, if I may say so, because President Trump is suffering from a lot of pressure from his own administrations. He got letters from several diplomats saying that the terms of those negotiations aren't quite right. We know that Secretary Pompeo have a disagreement with Zalmay Khalilzad, who's negotiating on behalf of the United States with the Taliban, because they are saying that it's premature to talk about retreating American troops as something before the conclusion of a peace treaty. This should be the outcome of the peace treaty, the retreat of the American soldiers. Knowing that that was a campaign promise from Donald Trump to retreat American troops from Afghanistan. But what we should know that today the Taliban said that they will not stop the fight against American troops because of this latest declaration of President Trump. But as you know, they never stopped the fight. This attack in Kabul, an American soldier died, yes, a Romanian soldier died, but on the 3rd of September they attacked another compound in Kabul, and they killed many foreign soldiers from the coalition. They also killed 2 American soldiers a few weeks ago, and they didn't push Donald Trump to retreat from those negotiations. The negotiations went on and on and on, and I guess that today the death of these American soldiers in Kabul was the tipping point where he couldn't stand and keep on this line of negotiation against all odds, against the advice of many scholars, the advice of the military institution and his own diplomats.
Now that the Taliban has been sort of indicating that they will be ramping up attacks now that negotiations are so-called dead. What did these negotiations, if you will, hope to achieve?
Well, they would have been historic for the Taliban, because the Taliban would have been able to say that they kicked out of Afghanistan 2 major forces, the Soviet Union and then the Americans. Today, they would have achieved something on the jihadi level, saying that standing fit and fighting could give a good outcome, and this is what Al-Qaeda would have used after them. And while the negotiations were ongoing, the Taliban achieved many things, because they sent delegations all over Central Asia. The latest delegations they sent to Indonesia was very relevant, very important. Their representation in Doha, they named 5 former Guantanamo detainees in this delegation in Doha. Some of the negotiators were former Guantanamo inmates. So on propaganda level, on the image level, it's very powerful what they achieved up to now. While we can see, on the other hand, that Washington or the United States, the actual administration, is just seeking a way out.
Indeed.
Yes, with the minimum loss possible. But it cannot be achieved this way. We had some hints about an American retreat over 135 days, saying that maybe 8,000 soldiers will stay in Afghanistan while the big part of the troops will retreat, but nothing is confirmed yet. We had also hints about the Taliban assuring the United States that they will fight terrorist organizations. And here we are talking maybe about the Islamic State, which they are really fighting now, but not for the same reasons as the American administration can imagine. Knowing also that the Taliban, who never dropped bin Laden in 2001, and they endured all this war because of this decision that they took, that Mullah Omar took at the time. We cannot imagine that today they will drop Al-Qaeda, knowing that each time that a new group of Al-Qaeda is being created, like in the Sahel region lately, the allegiance goes to Al-Qaeda Central and also to the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. And even the name, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, the Taliban never accepted to drop it, knowing that it was one of the conditions that the American imposed on them to reopen their position in Doha. They never dropped it. They never accepted to negotiate with Kabul's government, which is a huge blow for the legal authorities in Kabul. And we see things developing, like here on the images we are seeing that overrunning police stations in many places like Kabul, Kunduz, Baghlan, many province capitals are being attacked by the Taliban while the negotiations are ongoing. And people there, when they see the Taliban keeping on the fight, they are more keen to join the Taliban because they see the central government is losing foot.
Because they were sidelining these negotiations with the United States. Now, I want to talk about the security situation on the ground in Afghanistan, because the United States, their end goal is to eventually withdraw the number of U.S. troops. But Afghanistan is far from being a safe country. It's
far from being a safe country. Some are even saying that today the control of the Taliban is wider than in 2001. The days where Masoud was still had a force because he was killed on the 9th of September 2001. Masoud, he controlled the north of the country, so 2 days prior to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. And just one more thing, many blamed Trump for inviting the Taliban a few hours before, or a few days before the commemoration of 9/11. So this is also on the communication level, it was maybe a mistake for Trump. So it might also explain why he ended this abruptly now. And if you look at the map here, we see all the gray zones are the zones controlled by the Taliban, the red zones are the zones contested, and the light gray are the zones controlled by the government. So 138 districts are controlled by the government, 193 are contested, and 66 are under the control of Taliban. So most of the country is either contested or controlled by the Taliban. So major part of the population either under the rule of the Taliban or in a war zone. So it is very delicate today for some to accept that after all those years the Americans are just going to go out. Especially that we know today also that the Islamic State is getting stronger, at least on the border with Pakistan, through fighting with the Taliban, but also with the forces of the government. Today they had a fight in Mazar Dara between the Taliban and the Islamic State. Tens of dead among those two groups.
We'll see what happens. Wasim, thank you very much for that. Wasim Nasser reporting there.